Hello students, for this video we're going to do our first simulation just to see how that works in TinkerCAD. So make sure you have logged in and you're going to create a new piece of work in the circuit style. If you haven't previously logged in or you need a bit of a refresher on the interface, you might want to either talk to your teacher or watch some previous videos that cover those areas. Once we have loaded our basic interface, the first thing I always suggest is that you change the name of your file so that it is going to be saved with the correct name. If you are in one of my classes at my school, I always use a simple format of your last name, then your first name, and then the name of the piece of work. So in the case of myself, it would be Atomic Nathan, and I might call this one Example 1. So overriding the made up name that it gives you to begin with, after a moment you see it now has the correct name, remembering that these are saved automatically to the TinkerCAD cloud, and there are ways to download them for offline later on if you wish. So let's have a look at making our first circuit. So we're going to bring in a battery. Okay, we can rotate that battery because I don't really like the way that it's sitting, so we can use either the rotation button up here or the shortcut key of R that we saw. So I'm going to rotate it around and you see it sort of goes in segments. I'm also going to flip this around its vertices by again using either the mirroring tool up the top or the shortcut M. And the reason for that is I want the positive to be on this side because I know that when I bring my next component in, it's going to make my wiring just a little bit easier. Okay, if I've made a mistake, I can undo. I can also delete or trash the item that I've got selected. Again, there's a shortcut key for that as well. Let's now bring an LED in from our side. So I'm just going to put up there. I can name the pieces. So I'm going to call this LED 1. Sorry, I was not in the box properly. LED 1. And I can leave it as red or I can change another color. They're not going to really affect the way our simulation works other than obviously what it looks like. So I'm going to leave it as red for the moment. But in real life, different LEDs, for example, do actually have slightly different requirements. But that's for another day. Let's now join this with some wires. So I'm simply going to take my wire point here where the node joins on and join it onto the node of the LED up there. I happen to have this already set as a black wire, so it's drawn black. But if I now go and say let's draw a red wire, it's already changed that one because I had it selected. So sorry, let's put that back. Let's click somewhere else so it's not selected. Change this to be red. And when I now draw a red wire, you'll get that there like that. So in theory, we have made a circuit. Now again, I'm not expecting you to understand this circuit. That will come in your classes or videos later on. But for now, we have a power source, being the battery, connected to something that should do a thing, which is an LED or a light, and it's a complete circuit. So let's now try to simulate that. So we'll come across to the right-hand side, start simulation, and you'll see that it went green. There is a timer up the top, but what you may have noticed is immediately our LED has a broken symbol. It's been blown up basically. So as I said before, I don't expect you to understand the electronics of this, but basically we have put too much power into this LED. So let's stop the simulation and see how we might fix that. Again, not because I want to teach you the electronics at this point, but for a little bit more practice of how to use the program. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select the red wire and I'm going to delete that wire. So I can do that by either coming up and using the trash button or pressing the delete key on my keyboard. So it has now disappeared. What I'm going to do is bring in this thing called a resistor. So if we bring one of those in, I'm just going to put it to the side. Here is the naming, so let's call this resistor 1. Okay, and in this case, again, you don't have to understand the reasonings why, but we are going to put 470, and we're going to change this drop down to be the single ohms symbol. So it's important for now that you just copy this. We're again going to connect these, so from both sides, and we are now able to simulate this again. So if I start my simulation this time, I see my light does in fact come on because my resistor is essentially protecting it. And again, you'll learn why this happens at a later stage. Just for now, if you put the right values in, you should be able to see this. Let's stop the simulation and do a couple more things quickly. I don't really like the way these wires are sitting like this. I'd like to make them sort of a little bit more straightish. And when I say straight, I mean actually putting a curve so that they sit nicely sort of like that. So to do that, I can either delete them, and when I draw a new one in, I can go from here across, clicking once there, and then come and join it up like that. Or if I've already got a wire, you can double click somewhere on that wire to add a node, and you can then bend it at that node. You can add as many nodes as you wish. Okay. I like to use the lines that you saw pop up there to try and get things nice and straight. And that way this is looking a little bit neater for my presentation. It still works exactly the same way. The bends in the wire don't change the functionality, but it still works. The last thing I'm going to do here is I'm going to this time take out my black wire, and I'm going to come over here and I'll get this thing called a slide switch. I'm going to bring the slide switch in. There it goes. And I'm also going to rotate that around so the little pins of the switch are facing, in this case, in towards my circuit. And I'll just bring it a little bit closer. Again, we're just adding a piece. We don't expect you to understand how it all works yet, but if you follow this, it should work for you. I'm going to bring my negative wire to there, and I'm also going to add a little bit of a curve to make it look a bit neater. And then I'm going to take another one from the top connection and join it onto my LED like that. All right, when I start my simulation, if you've done it exactly the same as me, nothing should happen, because basically this switch at the moment is turned off. But if I click on it to slide the switch up, I've now completed my connection and my LED is working. So I have, again, a simulated circuit. The last things I'm going to quickly demonstrate here is not really a functional change, but just moving around the space. So I can zoom in and out. So again, I can most easily do that with the scroll wheel on my mouse like this. I'm scrolling forwards and backwards. And I can also pan around the space. That means move around space by holding down my center mouse wheel and moving my mouse. Oh, I notice I've got a spare switch sitting over there. You can also do that in other ways, but the mouse is the easiest way to move around your space. Okay, if you ever get lost, you can click on that little square button there, and that will zoom it straight out to fit the project on the screen in the center. It's the easiest way to do that. And the final thing that I would like to show you is adding notes to your designs. So up here next to the colors, we have these two icons. If you click on this one here, this is the notes tool. You can also use the shortcut key of N to put a note in. So it's a little reminder, and you can type a note in here. So this is the first circuit. Okay, you can have as much text as you like, because you can then press the little takeaway sign here to sort of collapse it, and anytime you click on it, it will open up to show you. All right, so you can put notes for yourself to either explain something or remind you to do something later on. And then one next to it, if maybe these notes are getting in your way a little bit, you can always click on this as well, or use the shortcut key of Shift N, and it will hide your notes. And obviously you can see that that icon changed. It's got a line through it to say, hey, we've hidden any notes there are. So if you're not sure if there are notes, unhide them, and there you go, you can see your note. And that is a simple introduction to how to physically use the program. We will also look at a later video about how to code with this program, so using an Arduino to do some coding. But again, it wasn't about teaching the electronics of this circuit. It was just a bit of practice for laying things out, wiring them up, how to start and stop the simulator, and so forth. So hopefully this has helped you, and you can now move on either in your class or possibly to some other videos and simulate some circuits.